There you go. Thank you.
Gorgeous day out, huh?
Excuse me?
Gorgeous day out, huh?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to
Can
be a
you guys
nice
hear me
week.
okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
I will continue admitting people.
All right,
Sure.
should we start? Yep.
Yes, please.
All right, thank you, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon. This is the September edition of the Evidence-Based Project Management Roundtable. And as a reminder, we meet on the third Thursday of every month, and I want to welcome you. And before we begin, I just have a couple of announcements. First, not only thank you for coming to this meeting, but we thank you for your support of the PMI Association as well as the Mass Bay chapter. Tomorrow is the big annual conference for the Mass Bay chapter. It will be held in Norwood. If you have any questions or want to sign up or register, just please reach out to me after the meeting. I'll get you some more information, but it's going to be all day from 8:30 to 4:30 or thereabouts, and you can earn your PDUs for those that have your PMP or CAPM designations. On top of that, we are one roundtable, but there are others that are sponsored by the association. Please go to the Mass Bay chapter and take a look at the other roundtables and register for those events. I think there's one, for women. There's one. I think there used to be one on healthcare. So there's a few. So you can always find one. Hopefully that pertains to your interests. And then besides roundtables, there are other events. They've been to Red Sox games. They've been hiking, gone on hiking events. So just get involved. And we want to thank you for your involvement and getting to know all of you. So thank you. With that, I want to introduce his name, Jim Hannon, who is going to give a presentation called The Impact of AI in Project Risk Management. And a little bit about Jim is that he has over 20 years of diversified experience in information technology in various industries, functioning primarily as a senior agilist. He possesses an expert level of project management and agile skills and has led many substantial and successful multi-organizational projects. Mr. Hannon has led 7 company-wide transformations to Agile and provided remarkable changes to numerous companies. These transformations involved over 500 plus teams and impacting over 100 products. Quite impressive. The Agile methods used were Scrum, Kanban, Scrumban, and Lean. The transformation efforts were estimated to have saved close to $25 to $50 million in quicker times to market and reduce quality issues. With that, I hand it off to Jim. The floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, John. First, I want to say thank you to John and Jacques to actually have me do this presentation. So I really want to actually go through somewhat slowly, but this is a roundtable. I want to hear if there's questions you have, you can bring them up, you can say it, or you can actually send it in the chat, and John will help me with that. So again, I taught a lot of the risk class at Northeastern, and risk is a very tough area to actually teach. So as you talk about Agile and also AI, it's very important. So as John had just said, 30 years of corporate and education experience. I volunteer mainly right now. I'm mainly a mentor for veterans, educators, and also medical. So I'm involved in that. I've taught at BU, Northeastern, LaSalle, and taught PM, Agile, and artificial intelligence. Agile is the thing actually that I was really involved in. I also started down the bottom here, the BU Agile Innovation Lab for BU. And I also have a company which is actually on sabbatical right now. That is Deep River Training. So we teach PM Agile and Agile artificial intelligence and value stream. And there is my LinkedIn profile. So please feel free network with me, and we can go from there. All right, so let's get going. So as we looked at project management and we looked at risk management specifically in AI, A lot of people actually look at AI as something that's going to solve all the issues we can think of. And it's not going to happen. It's really not going to happen. One of the big issues with AI is it's important to make sure you understand what it is, especially when it comes to risk management. So I wanted to define what is AI and what is risk project management, and then go through that and say, is there a collision between both of these? If you use I see a lot of benefit for AI when it comes to risk management. Again, as you do risk management, you spend a lot of time identifying what the risks are, try to do calculations, try to actually report off of all that. So this is actually a big thing here. So it's going to be a big help for people. It's critical in some projects, especially those, as you go through some of these projects now, and you look at these, the statistics is that it's very important as you go through these things, exactly how you actually approach these projects. So that's sort of the introduction. All right. So first, let's define it. All right. Let's do a impromptu poll right now. How many people are actually involved in AI right now? Anybody? You can come off of mute.
Involved in what way?
Well, either with project management or anything in regards to that.
Yeah, I'm using it for teaching and learning in my class. I do workshops.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
I use the AI when I advise and teach students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, teaching is actually very important for it. But actually, as you look at it, is anyone using AI and risk management?
I am not, no.
All right, okay. So let's go through this. Artificial intelligence as a whole, all right, is a capability of systems to perform tasks typically associated with humans. So as you look at it from a perspective of risk management, it's very focus on project managers, making sure they understand what it does, and understand what they do those things. And those tasks that you do are, as you see here, solving, perception, decision making. All right, make decisions that maximize their chance of achieving defined goals. So again, what happened is as AI has come to the forefront, AI is really, but they're a very important area. So you actually have those things for project management. So that's the definition of AI. What is project management? We know that, all right? Minimizing project risks and thereby ensuring that a project is completed within time and budget, as well as fulfilling its goals. So again, as I taught project risk management, and I've done project risk management as a practitioner, this is something that is very difficult. As you talk to management, you say we're going to talk about project risk management, and the eyes sort of glaze over. They're really not too sure what it does. And every time they hear project risk management, they go, "Oh, we don't want to talk about that." It seems like it's very bad. It's talk about a negative aspect of what projects are. So, but again, as you look at AI in project management, it's going to be definitely a benefit. So in preparation for this presentation, I did some research. All right, you see here at the bottom, there's a research here. On average, 10 to 20% of a PM's time is spent on risk-related activities. So I looked at that. I did some AI on this and actually looked at it, and I agree with that number. The high risk and large scale projects can climb to 30% or more. All right, as you look at that. As I've done a lot of these projects, especially the current company I work for, and also those, as you look at these things, they're not regular. You take a project and you do a very defined for a certain area, you do it across the enterprise. For smaller risk projects, it probably drops to 1 to 5 to 10%. So how much time project managers typically spend on risk management across different project types? Low risk projects, 2.5%, and 4.5 for average projects, yet 13.5 highest hours per week, all right, for those types of projects. So you look at those, and especially enterprise projects, as you have multiple areas, have multiple international aspects of your company, that is very important as you go through that. So I'll show some statistics as we go through this, and I think it's really telling that AI will actually help you with it. All right, so AI capabilities around risk management. Predictive analysis approach. One of the big issues is as you have risk management, especially regular project management, you're actually guessing, well, not guessing, but educating what you have to do. You have to educate project senior management and actually identify what I think what the risk management is, and identify what you actually think this should do and what impact it would have. And then I would always get to a certain point where I would put money around it, put dollar signs around it. So that is very important because all of a sudden management looks at it and goes, the eyes open up and they go, okay, that's good. That's definitely a plus. So you have machine learning for patent recognition, so you look at that. Again, what happens is there's a lot of different calculations you do for AI and project risk management. And this is actually very good for that. NLP for risk signals, it's going to tell you there's an issue with this. As you look at those different things for risk management and project management, you have those things that you actually want to take. And I was funny, I was talking to my wife last night, and she said to me, give me a good example of what AI would do. A lot of things for project management, I said, based off of what I used to do 5-10 years ago, it was very manual. So now AI could actually take it and move it out. So again, project managers are really leading the drive here to actually make sure things are actually a lot more important. So automation and risk reporting, the admin time of the PM. That's probably the biggest thing. So you have that. So especially as you have the risk management template, and you have those things that you actually have, as you start to update it, and you say, and this is what I taught the class, you do it, and you actually do it at this stage, and you get to that point where you actually roll the project out, and then it says, well, we have to change the risk management template. You have to do that. So that risk management template is really so fluid as you go through the project. So those are some of the AI capabilities under risk management, especially the automation and risk reporting. Any questions so far? Okay. And what I did for the next few slides is risk identification. So here's the different sides of risk. AI scans historical data and project records. As I first got involved with AI, especially for project risk management, I looked at it and said, all this information, again, all you have and it's there, you can actually go and look at it. Actually you identified what it did, what it should be doing, what it actually did. And you look at that historical data, that's tremendously helpful. Because you actually go to senior management and say, based historically, here's the information we have. All right. So we look at hidden risk and early warning signs. This is really the value that you can add as a project manager, especially using AI. You can actually look at that historical data, all right, and you take that and identify, is there an issue here? Is it hidden? Is it underneath the issues you have? And say, oh, wait, it is here. 6 to 7 years ago, we actually did this project and we had all this information. And again, what happens is, especially project managers actually look past before AI, and they couldn't actually look at it and say, here's the identification what you have. So identifying the historical data, scanning the AI, and using AI to look at historical data, all right, and looking at those hidden risks and early warning signs. All right, so that's important. So risk assessment and prioritization. AI models calculate probability and impact. This is the biggest thing that a lot of project managers, and especially people who are understanding project management, what is the probability and impact? Again, what happens is there's some impacts that you have, you can actually put around it and say, all right, here's the actual calculation. But again, probability and impact is subject matter expert. So a lot of people look at that and they go, well, that doesn't look too good. So that's something we have an issue with, but AI will actually help you with that. So also AI is going to look at prioritize risk factors automatically. So it looks at it and says, we're going to take it away, not take it away from the project manager, but actually give them more information. So you're driving more information to senior management. And actually what happens is And I would always say, as I go from company to company, the risk management and the risk template that senior management should look at, that's the only thing they should really look at. They try to manage risk and try to understand what exactly is happening. So AI is only going to help them with this. So risk mitigation and response, all right, suggest best mitigation strategies. As you go, if you look at AI and you look at this and you say, based off what you have, all right, is there different mitigation steps you have? And this is something you look at, based off of the historical data, based off of the data AI has, you can actually look at and say, well, we did this or this they did on this project, and you actually make sure you look at those scenarios for decision making. So again, that's something critical for actually looking at senior management. So it's important to make sure that you really calculate what the numbers are, but also manage senior management, and teach them. One of the big issues for risk management, I always said to people, is you have to educate the senior management. Because most senior management are going to say, what exactly is risk management? So now you actually say, here's AI in risk management, and their eyes just go way off. They really identify. I can't understand what AI is, and I definitely can't understand what risk management is. So education is probably the first thing, and making sure you identify what those things are, and make sure decision making is there. You have a cycle with it, and improves agility. All right, because Agile does work with this. So as you start to do this, and streamline the communication. Again, I've been through a million different projects, and you have multiple different teams and you have all of that. So AI is going to help you manage that. So it's critical. It says this is a project management.net, and it actually has all this information. All right, any questions? So you have real-time monitoring, continuous tracking of project KPIs, key performance indicators. You have that. So key performance indicated prior to AI was sort of a rough guess. Well, it wasn't a rough guess, but it was very very sloppy, as you have that. People would say, where am I at the KPI? So as you look at the KPI, you'll have all the information in there, all right, and identify what it actually is tracking to. And then the key is you want to alert for potential deviations, and that's important. Again, it goes back to my first statement. You actually want to manage senior management, educate them, and say these are deprivations you actually have. So it's important to actually say, you do this, and you can actually do it as a senior management. You can use AI to help you figure out what the deviations are. So what are the deviations? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? And based off of that, is it red, green, yellow? That still works. But based off of the organization you are, based off the industry you are, it may be different. So it's important to say, what industry you have, based off of what the industry, based off of the historical data, what is your actual deviations, and try to figure out what alerts you have. All right, any questions? So benefits of risk management in AI, all right, faster risk deduction, all right. So you actually say there's issues out here, and you say, I'll give the scenario to AI and say, based off of what we have multiple people across the globe. We have people who have done not really a great deal of experience in this education of this project. So they'll actually say, based off of this, you have risk identification, and detection. You say that you probably have risk here. And again, what you can do is actually at this presentation, you can actually look at the project you have in your class, or look at a project if you're working for somebody, and say, based off of this, how would AI handle it? So that's the best way to deal with AI. Give it the information and actually have it figure out what you actually say. Improve accuracy and forecasting. That's a huge issue here. Because again, what happens is, as the project manager starts to move, all right, they want to actually accurately look at what you have in forecasting. If you say all of a sudden it's 80% probability and impact, all of a sudden you said you change it down to 70%. Senior managers are going to say, well, why didn't you change it? That is actually stopping them from actually doing decision making. So decision support. So based off of that, based off of faster risk detection, improved accuracy of forecasting, and better decision support. Those are the three most important things. And then finally, you have cost savings and efficiency. Real-time actionable insights, and that's important. Because again, actionable insights is something senior management can look at. So also at the same time as you educate senior management, not just on risk management, you're actually going to say, well, I'm going to give you reports, and based off the AI, whatever portal you're actually using, this is what the actual decision making is going to be. And you actually say, I can make actionable insights, and that's key. But senior management is there to make insights, not just to say, well, is the project on track or is it getting into the gory detail of it? All right. Instead of relying on gut instinct, again, a lot of project managers, I've been at it for a long time, and you actually say, you have the gut instinct of what you actually have. The teams didn't look too right. They didn't communicate too well. Based off of that, my gut instinct says there could be an issue here. So you automate those documentation and analysis. Why did you actually say this is actually a big issue? Well, you could say, well, I went to AI, I gave them all the parameters and the prompts, and actually said, this is what we have. What do you think the project is going to do that? One of the big things here, especially you can go to your classes, but also go to LinkedIn, and they actually have AI and project management, but they also have AI and risk management. I strongly suggest you do that also. And again, what you want to have is data, data-backed risk. You want to make sure you have that. Because again, what happens if you just say, I'm going to figure out what my gut instinct is, senior management is not going to take that. They're not going to feel good about that. So you actually have data-backed risk analysis. So quantifying the time save. So as you have this chart, you have traditional time, AI enhanced time, and estimated time savings. So you have risk identification, documentation review, scenario planning. Again, that's huge. As you have that, going back to way back when I ran Y2K, that was one of the big projects I actually worked at. One of the big issues was you would say, what are the scenarios you would have here? Well, X, Y, Z. And now if I had AI, I could say, well, here's the impact of that. So we become better at not seeing the future, but actually giving you data, and actually saying, based off of historical data, this is actually the risk we had. Again, what happens is risk identification, 10 to 15 hours a week, and based off of that documentation, 5 to 6 hours a week, scanning, scenario planning, 4 to 6 hours a week, and team communication, 3 to 5 items a week. I always say that the project manager does 90% of their time in communication. Now it's actually probably lower than that. It's based off of the tools that they have and based off of the material that they have. And all projects are actually multinational. So you have to make sure you identify what the risks are in communication. So communication, again, is a class at Northeastern, and there's classes on Netflix, or I'm sorry, on LinkedIn, and actually say that. So traditional time, you have all that. But look at the AI and enhanced time. On risk identification, you have 2 to 3 hours per week, all right, as opposed to 10 to 15 hours per week. Your documentation review, you have 5 to 8 hours a week versus less than an hour a week. That's huge. Because again, what happens is all those things that AI can do, those are things that you as a project manager can push off to AI. That's something you can actually figure out scenarios. You can actually manage things correctly. We can actually go to senior management and say, based off of what I've seen, based off the data I've seen, this is going to be the scenario. So documentation is one thing you want to send out to AI. Then you have scenario planning, 30 minutes, as opposed to 4 to 6 hours per week for a project. Again, what happens is scenario planning is something that's very difficult as a project manager, especially as a new project manager. What happens is project managers don't really know what happens. if you don't, the old saying is, I can actually project manage every industry, any industry I'm in. Well, it's very difficult to do that in a lot of cases. So those scenarios are very difficult to identify what those are, in a scenario, the industry you're not familiar with. Team communication, 3.5 hours a week, less than an hour per week. So again, AI is going to actually help you do that. So look at the estimated time saved, about 80% reduction, risk identification, 85% documentation review, 90% scenario planning. And that's the biggest one. All right. That's one of the things you add the value. You as a project manager can say to senior management, this is what AI told me. So again, what happens is, I'm a big fan of tools that just, they can be wrong all the time. Tools actually help you do things, but AI is just a tool. That's what it comes down to. So if you don't understand what it's doing, it's going to be very difficult to actually manage that and actually tell senior management. So one of the big things for project managers are, you have to make sure you understand what those are. Don't quickly go to the tool. The tool is not going to help you manage the project. Pure project management is going to be the key. All right. And then team communication is less than 70% reduction there. So you see reductions in each one of these. All right. Cumulative savings across project phases, all right, especially in complex or multi-stakeholder environments. So this is important because as you look at communication, you're going to have multiple stakeholders across the globe. One person's going to want this, another person's going to want that. So AI is going to help you do the reporting. It also will help you do the scenario planning. So make sure you identify what AI is going to do for you. All right, AI is only intelligent as you tell it what it should do, and identify what those things are. So, any questions there? So there's some challenges and considerations. All right, data quality and bias. All right, so it's the first one. So let's talk about that. Data quality is if data in, data out, data crap. That's lousy. It's going to be lousy when you actually put it out. So you have biases in there, which is something you want to make sure you identify what those are. Biases are something you look at and you say, based off the people on the project, these are the biases we have based off of the project management team itself. Integration with traditional risk methods. This is key because that's the whole reason for this presentation. You have to figure out what thing you're going to integrate AI with. All right, so that's very important. That's a challenge. If you go in and you give bad data to it, it's going to give you bad data back. And again, AI is intelligent enough to say, this doesn't make any sense to me. I don't actually get what you're saying to me. So integration is going to be key. It's going to make sure you look at the data quality and bias of what the data is. Ethical and accountability concerns. This is another thing, especially when it comes to project management. Again, one of the good project manager actually says, if you take the PMP says, there's certain things a project manager should do. Based off of that, you should have ethical and accountability concerns in there. So actually now you add another task or another tool in there that's going to actually help you hopefully manage things. Again, keep in mind, tools are going to help you manage things as a project manager. You want to go back and save all that time you have in risk identification, documentation review, scenario planning, and team communication. It's going to save you from all doing that. It's going to save you the basic things that you have to do. All right. So needed for skilled project managers. Again, what happens is, especially I've talked to project managers, I've been teaching for a while, I've done project management in a lot of industries. One of the big issues is you actually have to identify how you actually put the project manager in correctly. Making sure they understand what they have to do with it. Again, you have to make sure you're skilled at that. So make sure as you leave your classes or you go into an industry, make sure you start to go in. I constantly do it. I constantly do AI classes every day. And I do that. I say, here's all the information, here's all the detail I want for this week. All right. and go in and try to actually look at it. Again, AI is constantly moving. It's moving at light speed, because it's changing as you speak. So those challenges are very important, making sure you look at those and also the considerations of what you have there. All right. Questions? Anybody?
Hey, Jim, there was a question in the chat about us stating that with your focus on AI training at Deep River and the BU Agile Innovation Lab and other various roles, what's the single most important human-centric skill you teach people for successfully implementing projects, AI projects?
Well, that's a great question because I think especially AI project is skills, making sure you're trained at that. Because if you have a project manager who's not fully understand what they do as a project manager, now all you got to do is throw this tool at it. And they're going to say based off of that. So not only training on AI, but also the biggest thing is making sure that's the biggest challenge that they have. That's the most consideration they have. And again, that's probably the answer to that. Any other questions, Sean?
Yep, and there was one more. It says, what specific AI tools, what are specific AI tools used for risk management? And the time saved that was presented is based on what, like what factors or,
You obviously have, I'm sorry, you want to continue?
no, that's it. That's all. That's everything.
There's a million of them, Claude, Copilot, ChatGPT, if you actually do that. What I did was I actually started to learn AI, is actually look at AI stuff, go to LinkedIn and go to that and actually make sure all those, I get a million emails every day. Probably 80% of it is AI. So education on AI is important for me. So again, you have all those different things. I like Copilot. That seems to be very good. The system from Google is actually good. Gemini, as you have that. But there's also some pluses and minuses on each one. So you want to make sure you understand that, making sure what the pluses and minuses are. Because if you go to senior management, you say, "We're going to use Copilot," and all of a sudden you realize there's a hole in it. You can't actually get that information out. So make sure skill, skill, skill. So the project managers are going to say, I know project manager, great. Make sure you understand what project manager is, but now I'm going to understand what AI is. Any other questions?
Nope, that covers it. Thank you very much.
All right, great. So the future outlook, AI-powered proactive risk management. So as I talk project risk management, I always thought about it and said, how are you going to be proactive? And it's very difficult, especially if I'm a new project manager leaving from Northeastern or leaving from BU or wherever, as you look at that. And I've never been in this industry. So AI is going to help me do that. But yeah, it's going to help you do it, but you understand what AI is giving you. That's important. AI is not the perfect thing for everybody, and especially every industry. So you got to make sure you have that. You have that understanding what it does. You have to be proactive. You want to get project management down. Make sure you understand the tools, whether it be Jira, Asana, whatever. And now you have another tool, which is AI. So again, a lot of people, especially in the industry, is saying, why do I need project managers anymore? I can have AI do it for me. Well, again, what happens is it's a tool. You understand what data you put in is data you're going to get out. Data in messy, data out messy. All right. So it's important to make sure you have a good understanding what project management is, have a good understanding what risk management is. And Northeastern faculty does a great job about that, because they actually have separate classes to actually say each one of those. Make sure you have your PMP. Make sure you have that. I went to a thing, Agile Network. They have these things, and I can send out the URL for that. And it's actually a good idea of what you have. PMI has a whole area for AI. There's people actually involved in that. So they identify, and again, keep in mind, a lot of people actually look at tools and they say, well, this is a good thing. They actually go and they start to pick on that. So that's a good thing. Agile was the hot thing. So everybody went on Agile. Again, what happens is every industry has the hot thing right now. So you want to make sure you have it, but you actually can use it. You could actually get good actual actable information from it and actually make a decision of that. All right. autonomous risk monitoring systems. Again, what happens is AI will look at it and say, based off of that, you can monitor it. Again, monitoring things, it's giving, queries and giving, giving rewards to say, based off of this, there's a risk issue here. All right. So that again is turning to senior management and saying, based off of what the AI is telling me, there's risk here. So you want to monitor it. All right. Human AI collaboration and decision making. Again, what happens is AI is going to give you an answer and say, well, this is how you actually make decision making. But again, what happens is it's a tool. Make sure you understand that. All right. Bottom line is decision making comes from the human. That is actually the most important thing you understand. So based off of that, you have the proactive risk management, autonomous risk monitoring, and human AI collaboration. Make sure you feel good about those three things, because that's important. So the conclusion is AI transforms risk management from reactive to predictive. All right. So reactive risk management can be very scary, all right, for a lot of senior managers. Again, what happens is as you talk to senior management, you say, when you talk about risk management, they say, I looked at numbers a while ago and said, based off of that, risk management is probably the least understood area. When people start to talk about it, this is actually the worst thing people actually do. I taught the PMP class a number of years, and you say, again, the PMP looks at risk management very effectively. But this is the area where you show your value. All right, making sure. All right, enhances resilience and project success rates. So actually make sure. I'm a big fan, especially as you do these projects and you do these tools effectively. What you want to do is make sure you're resilient and show that resilience and show those project success rates. Show it and not, say, hey, listen, I did all this, but actually show that AI has helped me. Make sure that is actually a good thing to have. All right. So feel free, you can email me at this. My LinkedIn is there. And also I'm on a sabbatical as a lecturer for Northeastern. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Jim. This is fantastic. So we do we have any questions in the chat? No, I think you address all the questions there. And my friend Avi was asking different types of AI in project risk management. I post an image here in the chat, but everyone can actually take it and reuse it. You have my permission, just cite it the way it is. But it depends on the project. The thing about AI, you don't have AI models nowadays who can't do everything. So if you want to integrate AI in a construction project, for example, you can actually use different types of AI. For a site, you could use like object detection AI for safety, construction safety. But at the same time, when it comes to project reporting, you could use a large language model. So as you can see, they're all artificial intelligence models, but different purposes. And an important thing Jim talked about is the idea of AI-human communications, collaborations, right? So you will need to learn to collaborate with AI agents because they will be performing certain tasks for you. And the way you collaborate with them is going to make a difference because you're not here just to check, to see whether the output is accurate. That's not just that. You have to be able to optimize result using the machine. Another aspect to think about is AI collaborations, Because if you have a project with a bunch of AI agents, they have to be able to talk with one another. Without these interconnections, the ability to communicate with one another, then we're going to have a lot of errors. So that's actually also very important. So I open the floor. If you have any questions, ideas, how you're using AI or AI agents at work, feel free to share what's your experience. Feel
If
free
I
to
could
share.
just add some comments, because you gave a lot of information there. And especially where it was funny was the other night my daughter came down and she said she's in a management a master's program at Worcester State, and she said based off of this she's an SLP, and she's given AI information and she got back bad information. So you have to understand what information you're putting in, making sure that is very important, but also making sure, and you might disagree with me on this, Jacques and John, but communication comes down to human beings actually talking to each other. That's important. Because
Right.
again, what happens is, people say, again, I've seen it happen way too many times, unfortunately. And people say, well, I have a tool. The tool will do it for me. Yeah, the tool will do it to a certain point. I'm a big fan of tools. I have all these certificates, all these different things as these two other gentlemen have. But again, what happens is you got to make sure the tools actually don't replace the human being. Give us the decision making and all the processing, and all these things we talked about today. For you as a project manager, that's why I keep saying you got to understand what you do as a project manager. Again, taking the PMP is a good thing, obviously a good thing. But actually, as you go into industry and you start to do it and you actually hear these issues, you have to make sure. So there is some gut instinct to this. I'm a big fan of the gut instinct, especially for project management. But it's important to make sure that you as a person can communicate with people. Again, what happens is, I'll tell you a story. 10 years ago, I worked for a company and I had a bunch of project managers reporting to me. And I would walk back and forth on the where they were all sitting. And I would identify project managers who had their door closed. That's usually a telltale sign there's a problem. And I'd watch it all day. They're not communicating with their teams. They're actually not involved with that. As a project manager, I always said, as I sat with the teams, I should identify what the issue is with them. And I don't go for a status report. Project managers are not about status reports. That's not what you do. You actually need to understand how you manage the project. Status reporting is a piece of it, but you need to make sure you understand how you actually manage the project. So as I looked at those things, I would say to one of the senior PMs I had, you have to be out to the team. You have to make sure you hands on. Make sure you actually use your skills to actually make sure the project is actually working well. You agree, Jacques?
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
this is very, very true. And I think communications, and someone actually asked about, the one of the most important skills to have in working with AI or in this AI project and AI implementation. And I think it is true. Communication is actually one of the top, I believe. But we not only have to be able to communicate with another, learning how to communicate with machine is actually very important. So this is the idea of prompt engineering, right? Prompt engineering is to be able to speak the language the machine can understand. And the better you can speak the language of the machine, the better result you're going to have. So that's also important.
And PMI has some great free repeat free classes. You can actually do this, get prompt engineering, get all sorts of things. I would say the best thing you would want to do as a project manager, whether it be new or old, is actually understand the data. All right. So you have to make sure where is data coming into, where is it going out of, who is actually putting it in, who is taking it out. Data management is probably the best important thing. The data scientist is very important. So again, the tool is the tool. So if you're putting in data that's lousy, you're going to get data that's even lousier. So, but
Absolutely.
communication, AI does not take a place of it. So don't think that you as a project manager can just say AI will do all of it. You as a peer project manager who's using AI can actually help senior management actually understand and teach them, educate them on what they need to do effectively. All right.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone
John, any
else?
questions? John?
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate the point that you put stuff into AI, get something coming out, you still have to interpret if it makes sense. 'Cause as you're saying, Jim, that you might actually get bad information, wrong information. So you need to have that skill set or talk to people, say, does this look, does this look sense, make sense? Does this look right? Does this, if you're putting data in, if you have like a work breakdown structure, does the timing look right to you? And as a new project manager, you may not know what it is. And if you depend on AI to do that, you might have a failed project. So understanding what the data is and where it came from and talking to people to ensure it's working, that's a key skill to have too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you brought up a great point here, John. There's especially like the basics of what's a WBS. The basics of project management, make sure you feel comfortable with that. There's a lot of people, our students here, or maybe students that are actually working in different industries, but to be effective and give value to the senior management is making sure you understand the basics of project management. Make sure what the WBS is. How did you actually build the project plan? You could actually go ahead and shove all this information to it. You're going to get back and you go, I have no idea what it says to me. Again, what happened is you can talk to people like I'll use my young daughter. She's actually in a master's degree. And she says, half the time I get it, I don't understand what it is. The other half I get it, and usually it's wrong. So you understand, you need to make sure you understand that. It's never perfect. It's a tool. All right. Other
Absolutely.
questions?
No, I don't see any other questions in the chat. You were actually very effective covering the topic here. We hope folks will jump in and continue the conversations. It's a round table. Remember, you're free to unmute yourself, turn on your camera if you want, and participate.
I see Beth here. Beth, are you a teacher at Northeastern? Are you?
Sure. Sorry.
Hi, Beth.
Hi, how's it going? Yeah, I am a part-time adjunct at Northeastern. Former ed tech staff member at Northeastern, but right now I'm just teaching part-time. So I've been using generative AI in my most recent class. I'm using it. I'm having the students fill out an AI log for how they're using it to do some of their work in that course. There's a lot of design thinking in this, and I took the AI for design thinking for my IDO over the summer, which was really, it was good, really human centric. So I tried to add some of that in there and say, here's some strategies, here's how they're recommending. You're already reading the design thinking book. Here's how we're going to use it. And here's an AI log. So I want them to be able to share what they're doing, what things worked better than others for which types of things. I want some reflection on it because they'll end up using all of this in their work. So what things did they have to verify that they got from their projects? And so that's what I'm doing in that particular class. And we'll see how it goes since it just started.
And you brought up a really good point here because one of the things I have a junior, actually another daughter who's actually a junior at a college in Boston. And I said to her, you need to know AI. She goes, yeah. And I said, based off of this, you need to understand what the data is. Project PMI has a data class to actually do that. And again, what happens is, she said, you're really good at this, Dad. What you want to do is look at Google, look at ChatGPT has a whatchamacallit, university. You want to make sure everybody has universities. So you actually get free training for this.
OpenAI has some really good training.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been trying to do a lot of the Claude training as well, but for the particulars of this course, which is more for teaching and learning as a context of using generative AI, but for the course, I actually created a project in Claude for me and the principal instructor. And then I added a lot of the assessment information and, assignment details, and then created some queries saying, use this information, we're keeping it closed to just this. How can we add generative AI? How can we assess it, the student use? And so then she and I went through that together to make sure it seemed like a good plan. And I could often imagine our students doing something similar on a team project. Now that they've updated some of the sharing details, I think that could be a really interesting way for the students to have a project where they might be using it for their project and also share with the instructor or whatever. And then that way you get better visibility into where they might be having problems with the context, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Especially as you look at this stuff, take information you have on a project, whether it be in an industry or you're actually a student, and go through Claude and put it through there. Go through Google's AI, and then go through Copilot and see. Actually, take a look. They're giving you three or four different scenarios. They're giving you information. They're going to give you information. Again, it's a tool. Making sure you understand what that is. So make sure you understand what senior management. Senior management is actually involved in the projects, right? In some cases they can be really involved, or they could not be involved. Again, what happens is you give them more information. Chances are they're going to say, "Well, what do I do with that?" So you're going to ask that question. You need to make sure you understand that. What do you actually do with the question senior management gives me? So make sure you understand basic project management. It goes back to one of the initial questions, what are the skills, and then go through, and there's millions and millions of free classes out there. Go into LinkedIn, connect with me, and I can send those to you. I can actually, send those out through chat through LinkedIn. There's a great, as you look at that, Google has it, all the colleges have it, and they do that, especially as they start to take AI across the world, especially the US. All these companies are saying, well, they're saying to the companies, you need to actually make sure people understand what they're doing with it. But again, don't forsake your basic project management skills at Northeastern.
Awesome. This is fantastic. Now, this is a great topic, and we do. I would like to remind everyone that we here every month, the third Thursday of the month, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I think our next presenter was here in the meeting. He probably left already, but this is the place where we meet to have conversations. Please don't be afraid to get involved. This is a friendly space for all of us to share what we're doing and learn from one another. Any questions?
That's crucial. This is where you as students can ask questions of people. Ask questions of Jacques, ask questions of John, ask questions of Ben, and say, what would you do with that? So you want to talk to people who actually been in industries, multiple industries, and say, this is what I would do with that.
Right, absolutely. And AI now is very pervasive. It permeates every aspect of our lives. So I would suggest no one is left behind. Actually, I spent the summer myself working on different developing AI models. The first model that I developed was a model based on memory. We know AI models have goldfish memory. They don't remember things unless you know how to set it up so they can remember your conversations. But we developed an AI model agent actually for cleaning. It's a machine with actuators, etc., but without sensors, with no sensors, only to remember where it went and not to go there or to go back there, etc. So it was a fantastic project. I work on that. And also a little bit later during the summer, we had sensors to understand what the difference was. Whether obviously there was an improvement because the machine could sense things around it, which make it, a little bit more effective in achieving its objective, which was cleaning a very large surface at the bottom of a building in a basement, sort of garage. And it was fun working with this. But one of the important things we took into consideration while working on this is something Jim talked about is ethical considerations. All the data we were collecting, did we have the right to collect them? And if we collected them, could we use them without, violating people's privacy? And that was an important aspect. And I was very happy to see that all the programmers, even if they were just engineers, but they did care about respecting the regulations and the laws in place. So that was very fun, two very fun projects to work on.
Yeah, a good example I'll end it shortly is my wife said cell phone bill is too high. We have two daughters, so I actually said, all right, let me put it down. I put it in AI. I said, look at all these variables, and actually compare it for me. I forced AI to actually do that. That's something you can do. So make sure you test it. Make sure you have time. You don't know you're going to learn project management. You're going to learn AI at the same time. I'll stop at that moment.
Absolutely.
Feel free to contact, and I'm more than willing to answer questions. Thanks,
you
Sean.
very
Thanks,
much,
Jacques.
Jim. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And that's the end of our session today. And thank you all for being here. Happy to see you, Avi, and everyone else. So I look forward to seeing you next month, the third Thursday of the month. Thank you very much.
Great things that you guys are doing here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.